The truth finally comes out, and it shatters everything. The courtroom fell silent, the kind of silence that presses down on your chest like a heavy weight. Every eye in the room was fixed on the witness stand, where Kody Brown sat, trembling. His hands shook violently, his fingers gripping the edges of the papers before him, as if holding on to them could keep him grounded. The proud, confident man of yesterday sat shattered, a shadow of what he once was. His eyes, normally sharp and guarded, were red and glassy, lined with fatigue and the unseen wounds of years of regret. The air was heavy, heavy enough to suffocate. The soft whir of the air conditioning was powerless to cover up the tension, and the slightest rustle of papers or muted whisper sounded like thunder in the stifling silence. Every breath was a challenge, every beat of the heart sounding off the walls in the room. Every individual in the room could sense it, the moment they had all been waiting for, but feared the unraveling of a family's innermost secrets. In the front row across the room, Robyn Brown sat tense, her body stiff with worry. Her face was paper white, ghostly in its pallor, and her hands closed around her purse, with fingers clenched into white-knuckled fists. For years she had worked to keep the family intact, trying to keep things together even when cracks were developing. She had taken Kody's words, his assurances, his plans for their life together on faith. She had assumed that love, faithfulness, and meticulous planning could insulate her children and herself from the turbulence that too often lurked on the fringes of their family existence. But now, as she sat in that courtroom, where all eyes were fixed on the man she loved and dreaded, Robyn felt her heart plummet. The vows that had once become anchors were disintegrating, running through her fingers like grains of sand. She felt the crushing weight of betrayal on her chest, the desperation eating into her very soul. All the years' worth of work, of quiet suffering, of attempts to reconcile love and obligation, seemed lost in the strained silence of the courtroom. Behind Kody, the other family members watched, each carrying their own storm of emotions. Christine's lips were pressed into a thin line, her eyes sharp with the kind of anger that burns quietly before it erupts. Mary's hands rested in her lap, trembling slightly, her face pale and tight, as if she were trying to hold in the grief that threatened to spill over. Janelle sat with a nervous tension that belied her character, fingers drumming in her lap, eyes flitting toward Kody with a combination of shock and sorrow. Even some of the extended family and close friends in the courtroom gallery were caught in their breath, realizing that what was happening here would be like a wound that could never be healed. The judge, a person of control and discipline, bangs the gavel. Order in the court. The clean ring of wood against wood seemed to momentarily slice through the strain, but the suffocating mood lingered. This was not merely a courtroom hearing. It was an epiphany, a judgment that would transform the paths of many lives forever. The law could only provide for some facts, some acts, but it could not gauge the heartbreak, the betrayal, and the emotional destruction occurring in real time. Kody swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing as he attempted to keep his voice steady. Every nerve in his body appeared to be alive with fear and guilt. He knew this day could come all along. He had known that certain truths could not be concealed, no matter how hard he had attempted to protect his family from the repercussions of his actions. Intellectually, however, knowing it did not read him for the stark, searing harshness of the moment. Sitting there, bare, naked, he understood that the barriers he had erected against his feelings were disintegrating under the burden of unspoken realities. Robyn's eyes did not look away, her eyes holding steady despite the water that brimmed to spill. She looked at the man she had loved, the man she had trusted, now exposed bare to the world. She looked at the shame in his eyes, the fear, the pain, and the regret. And in that look, she saw the depth of the cracks in their union. The unspoken words, the promises broken, the sleepless nights of anguish and grief gathered over years. Her heart hurt not only for herself, but for the children who stood silently by, for the family she had worked so hard to keep intact, and for the man who was now both their protector and their torment. The prosecutor rose, coughing once before he started to speak. His tone was even, but each sentence sliced like a knife. Mr. Brown, moving towards the witness stand, we have come today not only to reveal the facts of the case, but to face the repercussions of decisions made in secret. This is a family that has lived in secret, with secrets and hidden truths, and now the truth has been revealed. And the question before this court is, what does happen when the man who has been given so much fails to defend those he loves most? Kody's fingers clutched the papers harder, the corners crumpling with the effort. His brain ran like a macabre slideshow, images flashing unwanted battles that should have been fought, choices that had been delayed, instances of neglect now seeming monumental. He longed to talk, to clarify, to apologize, but the words were wedged, caught in his throat by shame and guilt. The pressure of the court's scrutiny bore down on him from all sides, as if the walls themselves were pinning him down. Robyn edged a little farther away from him, a tiny, barely perceptible movement, but it was heavy with years of pent-up feeling. She was keeping it together, but every molecule in her body was protesting. She recalled the nights when she had wept silently in darkness, when she had spoken her fears into the void, with the desperate hope that someone would hear her. And here now, in the open court, those fears were unfolding live in front of everyone. The crowd in the courtroom felt it too. There was a palpable tension in the air, a collective sense of the importance of the moment. Eyes were narrowed, some unable to keep their gaze from this, others covering their faces in their hands, tears shining in their eyes. Even the judge, who sat quietly, appeared to bring a trace of empathy to the table, sensing that this was not simply a matter of legal right or wrong. This was one of human vulnerability, of love and trust, strained to the breaking point. Kody's chest rose with a great shaking breath. He attempted to straighten, to stand tall, but the shake in his hands gave him away. He glanced again at Robyn, who stood staring back at him with a mixture of anger and determination. For an instant, the clock stopped. Each beat of their hearts, each passing second, had the burden of hidden words and unanswered wounds. And for that instant, suspended in time, everyone in the courtroom knew something irrevocable. Nothing would ever be the same again. The gavel rang out once more, its softer, almost sorrowful tone. It was a reminder that the law would continue on its course. But the emotional cost had already set in. Kody Brown was revealed, not only as a man under legal scrutiny, but as a husband, a father, and as a human being who was faced with the repercussions of his actions. And as the tension was thick in the air, as murmurs of disbelief and grief swept through the courtroom like a silent tide, one thing was certain: this family's downfall had started, and no one would emerge from that room the same. The courtroom was thick with tension, so quiet it was almost choking. Kody Brown's hands were still shaking as he clung to the side of the witness stand. His whole body radiated anxiety, every inch of him screaming. He'd spent years guarding secrets, bearing errors, and working to protect his family from his mistakes. But now the walls were breaking down, and the truth was tearing its way up through the remains. The prosecutor moved closer, his eyes fixed, his voice collected but cutting.
Mr.
Brown? He started. You made decisions in secret for years. Decisions that impacted not only your life, but the lives of every single individual in this room. Today we reveal those choices, and we pose the question: were you safeguarding your family, or safeguarding yourself? The words hit Kody like a body punch. His chest constricted and he swallowed hard, struggling to remain calm. He had always believed that it was right to hold certain truths close. He had believed some secrets were needed, that revealing them would create more chaos than harmony. But the burden of those years had become intolerable, and now the court required the truth. In the other room, Christine's eyes blazed with fury. Her jaw was clenched, her knuckles white as she clasped the bench before her. How could you? She muttered under her breath, a combination of disbelief and outrage in her voice. She had trusted him, relied on him to keep the family intact, and now she was left to confront the truth that he had failed in ways she could never have dreamed. Mary, sitting next to her, was also quieter but not less injured. Her hands lay in her lap, quivering softly, while her mind flashed back over the years of letdowns and unvoiced resentments. She had attempted to preserve a feeling of tranquility, to forgive and ignore small errors. But on this day, the result of all the unvoiced behaviors lay open. Janelle shifted uncomfortably, her characteristic calm replaced by evident fear. Her gaze flicked between Kody and the prosecutor, her heart racing. She had always been the voice of reason within the family, attempting to broker arguments and calm ructions. But now, Even her effort at comprehension seemed vain in the presence of the raw, naked truths. Robyn sat stiffly in her chair, her body tension almost tangible. All of her muscles appeared to be tensed up, poised to respond to whatever revelation was to come next. She had lost many nights fretting, thinking and hoping the cracks she perceived evolving within the family could be resolved with love, patience, and trust. But sitting here now, with everyone's eyes in the courtroom upon them, she understood that some cracks were deeper than they ever would have thought. The voice of the prosecutor broke into the heavy air once more. Your family trusted you, Mr. Brown. They trusted your promises. They trusted your potential to lead, to protect, and to make the right decision. But your actions have repercussions. And those repercussions are now evident for everyone within this room to see. Kody's mouth opened, but nothing escaped. His mouth was parched, as if to speak would break him utterly. Memories of long nights spent bickering, choices made behind closed doors, moments where he had failed, they all burst forth in a relentless flood. He felt the censure in every glance, the letdown in every look. Christine shifted minutely in her seat, her voice slicing through the thick, dismal quiet. We thought we could count on you to protect us. We thought we could count on you to love us completely. And look at us now. Look at what you've destroyed. Mary's voice added itself, low and almost silent, yet charged with raw feeling. We needed you, Kody. And now, I don't even know who we're left with. The room appeared to be holding its breath. Even the judge, a man of stoic presence, leaned forward, watching the emotional ruin unfold. The air was heavy with unspoken truths, as if the walls themselves were witness to the hurt of a family shattered by errors and betrayals. Kody finally broke the silence, his voice cracking beneath the pressure. I didn't think I was doing the right thing. I thought I could solve everything by myself. I thought that if I just hid some things, I could keep all of you safe. But I was wrong. Tears welling in his eyes. For the first time in years, Kody Brown looked utterly vulnerable, exposed not only to the law, but to the ones he cared for most. The weight of his errors hung in the air, irrefutable and stifling. Robyn's eyes sparkled with uncried tears. She had worked so hard protecting, explaining and pardoning, that she wasn't certain her heart had any more strength. She wanted to yell, to shout at him why, to get the answers, but instead sat, keeping herself together for the children sitting quietly in the back. Christine's lips trembled, as she tried to keep her anger in check. Mary's hands shook, and Janelle's normally composed frame seemed ready to collapse. The entire courtroom was a landscape of heartbreak, each face telling a story of trust lost, love tested, and patience exhausted. The prosecutor's voice was firm, but even, it forced everyone back to the real world. Mr. Brown, these are not errors. These are decisions with repercussions. And today, all of this courtroom witnesses the aftermath of those decisions. You can no longer hide behind promises. You can no longer hide behind love. The truth is here, and it cannot be erased. Kody's shoulders curled in. He knew this day would arrive, but no preparation could temper the sting of standing before the combined disappointment and sorrow of his family. He knew, in this instant, that there was no armor sufficient to protect him from the emotional fallout of his decision. Robyn's eyes softened a little, though her heart pained her still. She did not merely see the man who had failed her, but the man now facing the brunt of that failure. The air in the room was tense, an emotional storm waiting to burst at any moment. And as the courtroom was hushed, everyone with their own hurt, Kody Brown realized a sad truth. The secrets he had guarded to keep his family safe had done precisely the opposite. They had constructed walls between them, walls that could never be brought down. The truth was finally out, and with it, the dismantling of a family that once thought they could ride out any storm together had truly begun. The courtroom took a collective breath. Kody Brown's head was down, hands on the stand, knuckles white with tension. The pressure of years of error weighed him down like a mountain, and for the first time, the man who had always tried to look strong was utterly shattered. Robyn Brown stood up gradually from her chair, each movement careful, her legs shaking under her. She moved towards the middle of the court, never taking her gaze off Kody. She was the voice of reason in the hurricane, the low-key guardian of her family, always keeping things together. But now the gates of her emotions were nearly bursting. You vowed to us. Robyn's words started, shaking but imbued with a strength that could not be ignored. You vowed to defend this family. You vowed to love us, lead us, and care for us. And here we stand, hurt, confused, and damaged, because of the decisions you took in the background. Her words cut through the courtroom like a knife. Every eye was on her. Christine's glare burned into Kody, her own anger mirrored in every tight line of her face. Mary's lips pressed into a thin line, fighting back tears, while Janelle's hands trembled in her lap. Even the judge, usually unshakable, leaned forward slightly, sensing the raw human pain that had been unleashed. Kody's voice cracked as he attempted to answer. Robyn, I never meant to hurt anyone. I was only trying to protect everyone. And was trying to do the right thing. I failed. His admission loomed in the air, heavy and agonizing. Robyn's eyes were brimming with tears. But she didn't waver. She knew allowing him to glimpse her fortitude, even in her heartache, was essential to him, to the children, and to the truth. You don't get to tell yourself that, she replied, her tone firm now, cutting. You don't get to say it was for their protection, when the ones you most care about are the ones left hurt. And I trusted you, Kody. I believed in you. And this is what happened. Kody dipped his head into his hands, the shake of sobs running through him. The courtroom was still except for the quiet sniffles from the audience. The quiet, sorrowful sound of children, understanding the adults in their world were imperfect, human, and vulnerable. Christine's voice cracked next, booming and angry. We trusted you, Kody. We believed you when you spoke. And you? She caught herself on a quivering breath. You tore us apart. You tore apart the family we struggled so hard to hold together. Mary, her skin white, finally broke her silence. You were to be our leader, to show us the way. And now, I don't know who is left. Her words were low but laced with grief, a whisper that resonated in every nook and cranny of the courtroom. Janelle, normally the voice of reason, was shaking almost. I've attempted to forgive you in the past, Kody. I've attempted to give you opportunities. But hearing this, seeing this, I don't know how we can ever be the same again. The judge cleared his throat, his voice carrying over the growing tension. This is not merely a question of law, he intoned. This is a question of trust, responsibility, and the emotional ties of a family. Today, those ties have been strained past the breaking point. Kody glanced up, his eyes puffy and red, his voice so low that it was almost inaudible. I realize that now. I never knew how much I was hurting the people I love. I figured I could do it. I figured I was strong enough. But I wasn't. Robyn's tears did finally come freely. She breathed in deep and looked straight at Kody, her voice softening but not weakening. We needed you, Kody. I needed you. And now, I don't know how to get on when the ground of trust is removed. The kids in the courtroom were quiet, little silhouettes in the corner, observing the raw human emotion before them. One child's tear was shed painfully slow, going largely unnoticed. But a lifetime of pain and confusion rode behind it. The courtroom drew in every emotion as if even the walls were grieving the shatteredness of the family. Kody's shoulders drooped. He had hoped that he could explain himself, justify his decisions, and somehow repair what was damaged. But standing there, seeing his family's raw hurt for the first time in this new light, he realized some wounds were unerasable with words. Robyn's words hung in the air, ringing out in the hearts of all those around. Love isn't meant to hurt this way, Kody. You could have kept us safe, kept us together, and now I don't even know where we're at. The prosecutor backed off, letting the emotional testimony set in. The room hung heavy with sadness, heartbreak, and the bitter reality of consequence. Kody's failure was no longer discreet. It was exposed for all to witness, an emotional accounting that could not be alleviated by words. And while the courtroom stood in silence, the power of Robyn's testimony hit every single individual who was there. The impact of her truth, pain, and unflinching strength left Kody Brown vulnerable to a degree he had never been before. It was a moment of pure humanity, a turning point in the life of a family, and a start to an emotional journey that would forever shift their relationships. The gavel came down gently, almost sorrowfully, indicating that proceedings would be halted. But the effect of Robyn's words could not be denied. The fact had been uttered, feelings had been released, and the family and Kody too would never be the same again. The courtroom was filled with a dense, almost suffocating tension. Kody Brown stood on the witness stand. His head hung low, his shaking hands as if the burdens of all past errors weighed on them. Robyn's emotional testimony had left an open wound floating in the air, and now, it appeared the walls themselves bore the sound of sorrow and rage. The prosecutor rose, his voice steady but incisive, slicing into the silence like a blade. "Mr. Brown," he began, "we are not here to accept confessions or remorse. We are here to face the truth of your actions. For years you have obscured facts from those who trusted you most. Your wives, your children, your relatives. Today their price is irreversibly paid. This isn't just about law. It's about being held accountable, about confronting the harm that was caused." Kody's shoulders trembled. "I never intended to hurt anybody," he whispered, his voice cracking. "I thought I was defending my family. I thought I could do everything. And I made a mistake. I realize that now. I realize all the ways that I failed." Throughout the courtroom, Christine's eyes raged with anger. Her jaw was set, and her voice shook with contained fury as she addressed Kody. "We trusted you, Kody. We believed in you. In your word. In your love. And now, see what you've left behind. You weren't just reckless. You shattered us." Mary's soft tears filled the little spaces in the quiet. Her hands were tightened into fists between her knees, knuckles white, as though gripping them might be able to keep her heart from breaking apart. "You were supposed to guide us, Kody. You were supposed to be this family's anchor," she whispered, voice heavy with grief. "And now, I don't know who we have left." Janelle, who was usually the voice of reason in their family, sat rigidly, her face white and her hands shaking. "I did try to forgive you once already, Kody," she said, her voice quivering. "I did attempt to trust you once more, to grant you a second chance. But to see this, I don't know if ever again can I trust you." The weight of their words bore down on Kody harder than any judgment or gavel could ever hope to. He longed to respond, to explain, to beg for comprehension, but each syllable was wedged in his throat. The truth was undeniable. Each whispered deception, each secret decision, every choice that was made in secret was exposed before the people he loved best. And now, there was no concealment, no apology, no refuge. Robyn, sitting front row, at last allowed tears to flow freely. Her shoulders trembled with muffled sobs, and for an instant she appeared to bear the shared sorrow of the entire family. "We needed you, Kody," she whispered, her voice trembling but firm. "I needed you. Our children needed you. And now, I don't even know if we can ever get over this." Even the judge, severe and unemotional for the entire course of the trial, seemed to sense the gravity of the emotions within the courtroom. He leaned forward just a bit, watching the destruction with a serious, near-sympathetic eye. "Mr. Brown," he stated carefully, "this courtroom recognizes the truth. You cannot turn back the clock. You cannot remove the hurt that has been done. But to recognize the truth is first to know it. And to know it is the beginning of healing." Kody's head fell, his words barely above a whisper. I get it. I see how much I've hurt all the people I love. I thought I could control it, that I could keep the family safe by doing it myself. But I see now that I was mistaken. I can't undo what's been done. But I can confront it. I have to confront it." Christine's voice cracked again, her tears spilling so close to the surface. "Confronting it isn't enough, Kody. You must live with it. Every single day. You must live with the hurt you inflicted, with the trust you broke, with the family you broke. And perhaps that's the only penalty that will do." Mary sniffled ever so softly, the smallest of her tearful confessions. "We loved you, Kody. We trusted you. And now, I'm not sure what's left." Janelle buried her face in her hands, a shaking whisper spilling out. "The family will never be the same. The trust, the love, it's broken." Kody's whole body trembled with sobs. He had rehearsed confrontation in his mind so many times before, but none of those rehearsals had prepared him for this. The devastation of seeing the people he loved most hurt, their hurt, disappointment, sadness and anger squarely focused on him. The weight of their words, their tears, their hurt, felt greater than any court verdict could ever possibly be. The kids, quietly seated in the backdrop of the court, were silent witnesses to the destruction. Their small faces, wide eyes, and gentle tears reflected their parents' emotional destruction. One kid's tear dropped gradually, a small tear of sadness that contained the weight of the pain of the room. Kody swallowed hard, shaking his head slowly. I did it to protect the family. I thought keeping quiet, making my own decisions, and trying to keep everything from falling apart would work. But it just made everything worse. I have no excuse. I was wrong. Wrong on all accounts. The judge nodded gravely. Admitting errors is necessary, Mr. Brown, but so is seeing the effect those errors have on the people around you. Today, you are presented not simply with the truth, but with the emotional cost of what you've done. This is a reckoning that's not just about legalities. It attacks at the heart of family, love and trust. Robyn wiped away her tears on the edge of her sleeve, gazing at Kody with sadness and determination. We needed you to be tough for us. She spoke softly, her voice cracking but audible. You were to be the one to guide us. And now, you have to live with the reality that your decisions destroyed us. The courtroom collectively breathed out, the tension briefly dissipating, but the emotional blow was left. The truth had been exposed. The heartache had been uncovered. And Kody Brown, who had once been a symbol of control and authority, now sat broken, humbled and vulnerable under the weight of all the tears, all the heartaches, and all the repercussions that his decisions had brought about. The courtroom was frozen in a moment of time. Kody Brown, with his head down, shuddered from head to toe, seated on the witness stand. The burden of decades of errors, unspoken realities, and secret decisions weighed upon him like a relentless tempest. The heartfelt testimony, the admissions, the weeping and the sorrowfulness, everything had reached the pinnacle of a climax he could not avoid. Robyn sat in the first row, her tears flowing openly down her face. Her hands had relaxed from the clutching of her purse, but she no longer attempted to hold herself together. Every statement she had made, every fight she had endured, had drained her energy, leaving her exposed and vulnerable. The family she had struggled so desperately to defend now appeared fragile, brittle, and irrevocably changed. Christine, Mary, and Janelle remained seated, each processing the devastation in her own way. Christine's usually sharp, commanding gaze softened, betraying the deep hurt she felt. Mary's quiet sobs filled the gaps between heavy breaths, and Janelle's hands shook in her lap, the calm exterior she always maintained now stripped away. The courtroom had become a theater of grief, with each family member playing a role in a tragedy that had unfolded in real life. Kody finally raised his head, his red, puffy eyes locking with Robyn's. I'm so sorry, he whispered, speaking just above a whisper above the quiet. I never meant to hurt anyone. I just wanted to keep the family together. And now I see that I've destroyed it instead. The judge, who had been holding himself in check throughout the trial, leaned forward. Mr. Brown, he said gravely, this court sees the truth. The legal process will reckon with actions, but the emotional price is unavoidable. This family has suffered agony beyond words' ability to tell. You must now bear the effects of your actions. Robyn's voice shook as she spoke once more, but this time softly, but still full of undeniable gravity. We believed in you, all of us. And now every vow, every word, every expectation we had is broken. I don't know how we go on, Kody. I don't know if we can ever trust completely again. Kody dipped his head again, tears streaming down his face. I know, he conceded, his voice cracking. I don't deserve to ask for forgiveness, only to endure the pain I've inflicted. I can't erase what has happened, but I will bear it every day. Christine rose at last, her face pale but firm. This isn't about your errors, Kody. It's about responsibility, about seeing the hurt you've caused, feeling it and never forgetting it. This is what happens when you let down the people who trusted you most. Mary's gentle voice added, reed thin but piercing. We loved you. We relied on you. And now, we need to figure out how to piece it back together without the protection we used to have. Even the children, quiet until this moment, were visibly shaken. Their tiny faces were creased in sadness and confusion. One child grasped their mother's hand, looking for comfort, while another silently brushed away a tear from his cheek. The impact of the theatricals in the courtroom had reached all of them, reminding them that once trust is broken, its scars can take years to mend, if they ever do. Kody's voice trembled as he spoke directly to the family, words rushing out in desperation. I thought that I could make everything better by myself. I thought that I could bear the burden of our issues and shield you all. But I was wrong. I was not strong enough. I made decisions that harmed the people I loved the most, and I will have to live with that every day for the rest of my life. Robyn extended her hand, hesitating for an instant before allowing it to drop back into her lap. Her tears had ceased to fall, but the devastation was still clear in the creases of every face line. She was aware that reconciliation would be hard, perhaps impossible, but the admission of truth was the first step, no matter how agonizing. The judge's gavel came down again, lightly but firmly, indicating the end of the session. This court acknowledges the emotional impact of the actions on trial today. The truth has come out. The hurt is genuine, and the repercussions will be felt for a lifetime. The room collectively breathed a sigh. The trial, the confessions, the accusations, the tears, all of it had led to this emotional reckoning that could no longer be ignored. Kody Brown sat, shattered but truthful, bearing the weight of all his failures. Robyn, Christine, Mary, and Janelle departed the courtroom forever changed, bearing the weight of hurt, betrayal, and the weakness of family ties. And even as the legal cases would finally run their course, the emotional aftermath remained, long after the gavel came down. A family once united by trust, love, and optimism now gazed upon a reality they could not deny. A reality born of human errors, deception, and the irrefutable fact that at times, love is not enough to avoid heartbreak. The history of that courtroom would be told, not of the verdict, not of the legal fallout, but of the stark, unadorned truth of a family laid bare, a man brought low, and the delicate, exquisite beauty of human emotion stripped bare for everyone to see.